Okay, well, welcome everybody to this second of our public engagement sessions. Thanks very much for turning up, and welcome to anybody at home who's looking in. I'm Councillor Phil Murphy. I'm the Cabinet Member for Resources, and I'll be delivering this presentation on where we are with the budget deliberations so far. The last 4 years has seen some 18 million taken out of our budget, and as you can imagine, that's caused us to have quite severe headaches, and we've had to constantly reinvent the way we do things to cope with that. And the expectation is that the austerity for public services will continue. We have had a reprieve, which we think is a one-year reprieve. It would be lovely to think it's not, but it looks as if it is. In that instead of having the anticipated cut of 2.3%, which is more or less 2.3 million, just in round terms, 1% to us is £1 million. We had a level settlement, zero. That, by the time you take different grants and things into account, and then slight modifications with the final settlement, gave us a slight increase. It was only 0.3%, but nevertheless it wasn't the cut that we were anticipating. So that actually made us some 2.3 million better off than we thought we were going to be. Those who've been to these presentations before will be familiar with this slide. It's the slide that compares us with the other authorities in Wales, and you can see lowly Monmouthshire right over on this side here. And you'll see from that we get just under £1,000 per head from Welsh Government to run this authority. Our neighbours in Blaenau Gwent get over just over 1,500 per head to do the same job. I know there's arguments about deprivation, but nevertheless it's quite a considerable gap, and if we had the same funding as that, we'd have another 55 odd million, and that would put us in an entirely different position to the one we're in today. But when you look at that in terms of our budget modelling, we've modelled an increase in council tax of 3.95%. That doesn't mean to say that's what it's going to be. That's what we've modelled for our working assumptions. But let's assume for a minute that we do stay with 3.95%. You can look at your band in there. So just for illustration, if somebody is in an average band D property, the effect of that increase will be 86 pence a week. I stress that that is the MCC element of your council tax bill. Any police or local community council precept would alter that, but the MCC element of it is 86p. And for those, the majority in Monmouthshire would be F, G and H. You can see that the actual increase, although greater than 86p, isn't overall that great. But as I say, I know I'm repeating myself, but that is a working assumption at the moment. So we look at the items that have been considered within the budget build, and you'll be aware from the press and television just recently there's been a lot said about local authorities in England increasing their precepts to cope with the additional burdens on social care. And although it's unlikely that that arrangement will apply in Wales, because we're on our own when it comes to that sort of thing, we've had to particularly look at the adult social care budgets. Over the last couple of years, we've put millions into children's care, but the pressures with the elderly population and increasing the elderly population is causing us to put a significant growth in for the social care budget for adult social care. schools are one of our priorities, and by prioritising schools, what we're saying is that they won't suffer the same percentage cuts as other parts of the budget, and we'll be flatlining the levels of cash to schools. Having said that, they will have to pick up some additional burdens, but they do have a budget of some 65 million pounds. So we're asking them to help us out with that. But having said that, their overall cash funding will remain the same. We are a living wage payer. In fact, we pay more than the normal living wage, and we will continue to do that. And we're continuing to look at alternative delivery models as ways of maintaining our leisure and cultural services, rather than, like a lot of authorities have done, close down leisure centres, libraries, museums and all sorts of other facilities. We're looking at ways of trying to prevent us having to do that, and as a result we're looking at different models, and that work is ongoing. We'll be looking to change our way of providing those services rather than risk closing them down. There'll be no increases in car parking charges, and we are looking to maintain all local services, although it's true to say that you may well see different ways that they're being delivered, but nevertheless the service will still be there. So modelling all those budget assumptions and other assumptions regarding pay structures and all sorts of things like that, we've got a gap of some 4.5 million that we're going out to consultation on. So whatever happens, there won't be any more coming from Welsh Government. We have to find ways of coping with that 4.5 million. We looked at our council tax collection rates, and we consistently get in, not in year, but over a period, we consistently get some 99.5, 99.6 or so percent of our council tax in, and that's been consistent now. So we've increased our council tax anticipated collection rate, and taking into account new properties coming online, that gives us an extra 515,000. And resetting the budget for council tax reduction payments to the current level of demand, because we now have had that scheme in for a while and we know how it's panning out, we're able to save another 370,000. And again, all services have had to be reviewed, and staff have been asked, officers are working very hard on ways that they can find to streamline their services. We've been asking them to do it for years, but every time we seem to find another way of coping with it. And some 68 proposals that have come forward will yield 854,000 if we're able to implement them as we think we can. But we're down to, in many cases, very small amounts now. This slide illustrates the fact that we're not just looking at the big ticket items. We've had the low-hanging fruit, to quote the phrase, which I hate really, but everybody uses it. So increasing the take-up of the car salary sacrifice scheme, 7,000 there. Charging schools for waste collection. Charging people where we're able to, for instance, with the bulky waste collection charges. Currently you pay £12 to have up to 3 items collected. It's usually bulky stuff that you don't have the facility to take to the tip yourself. Homemakers will come along and collect that. We're putting that charge up from £12 to £18. But as homemakers get that, we will be reducing the amount that we subsidise them by. Additional income will come from trade waste customers, and we'll be increasing the price of school meals. There was already a 5p increase in the pipeline, but that, I'm afraid, has to go up to by 10p, although that is still putting us very much in the lower end of charges for school meals. When organisations or town and community councils ask for road closures, there is a fee for that, and we'll be increasing that by 50%, as will be the fees for placing skips on the highway, scaffolding, licences, street naming and numbering. But you can see there that although we're putting it up by a substantial amount in the percentage-wise, we're only looking on both of those items to recover some £30,000. But £30,000 could be somebody's job. Extending charges to other services will give us another 7,000. So as I say, we're into the realms of as many small amounts as we possibly can, because quite frankly the big ticket items have gone. With regards to service reductions, I said earlier that we wouldn't be curtailing any of the services, although we may deliver them in a different way. There's 10 proposals come forward that we're actively looking at, with some 281,000 potential savings. We will be reducing the out-of-county school placement budget by 50,000. We get children given to us by the court that we have to support. The court can easily give us an extra child. There may be a court case tomorrow that's suddenly going to cost us £250,000 a year. That's nothing we can do anything about. But although we can't anticipate that, what we can do is look at our other placements, and we've identified how we can meet some of the external need in county. People who are currently being transported around the county for free are going to be asked to make a contribution to that cost. And the market for the purchase and rental of DVDs in libraries has now gone away due to current technology. It's not cost effective to continue that service. And there will be some staffing restructuring. 28 proposals totaling 444,000, but a lot of that is deleting posts that are not currently filled on the basis that they're not currently filled and we're still providing the service. So we're going to be taking those points out, and wherever possible we do that. Deleting a post that somebody is in is very much a last resort. Our grass cutting and grounds maintenance crews actually earn us money, and by reducing the grass cutting frequency, it will release core staff to focus on income. If you can't get all your money from Welsh Government, it's not fair to keep piling it on council tax necessarily. If we can find other ways of doing it that prevents us having to do that, we will. So those people will be concentrating on more external work. If town and community councils are not happy with the level of grass cutting and grounds maintenance, we'll just use those as examples, they can commission us to do it for them if they want, or they can pay somebody else to do it. But if they want additional cuts, then they can ask us to do it, and we will invoice them accordingly. And we have lots of arrangements with groups around the county. The one on the screen is just an example where we actually do more than we're contracted to do, and we will be cutting back to our contracted arrangement, and again additional charges will be appropriate if people want more. And there'll be some slight amendments to the street lighting and maintenance budgets, but as you can see, this is really there only to illustrate the fact that we're looking at absolute minutiae now. Because if you look at enough of those, you can get a reasonable sum out of them. So in summary, and those are only just quick examples, in summary, I said earlier that we had to find some 4.5 million. We have looked at the way that we deal with the way we support our borrowing. Last year we looked at unsupported borrowing, the more recent stuff, and we made some savings by changing the basis of the way we do that. This year we're looking at supported borrowing, that's the older stuff, under a different criteria, and we've made some 1.5 million in cash savings out of that reduction. I did mention the council tax reduction scheme and the change in the number of properties and the collection rate. All of that together brings us down to a gap of just over 2 million. And those service proposals that I spoke about should generate 1.8. So we're going out to consultation and we're still 243,000 adrift. So we're looking very much at how we can plug that gap. And that's where we're asking members of the public to make suggestions. We'll take them on board. If we haven't thought of them, that's great. If we have, at least we're aware that we're looking along the right lines. So we will be looking at our estate again. The corporate landlord model, we're looking at how we can make investments outside where we can get an income from them. We're looking at our own properties to see whether or not we can release some of them to get capital receipts. We've been doing that for years, but we'll continue to do that. We're also looking at where it's not appropriate to sell them. Can we get an income off them? Again, that's something which has been going on for a long time, but we're doing a lot more of it. We're reviewing the way that we support town and community councils and other groups. We're looking across the board to make sure that we're making the right use of our IT equipment, that we don't have unnecessary travel. Are we right in photocopying something? Can it be kept electronically? Do we have to copy things as well? And looking at our marketing arrangements. We'll be looking at procurement. Again, are we procuring things in the right way? Have we got the right frameworks in place? We use the National Procurement Service run by Welsh Government. Is that always appropriate? And we'll also be not just putting more money into adult social care, but we'll be looking at the effectiveness of the support that we give. As regards capital, we have a large commitment to the Future Schools programme. People will have seen the new Caldicot School rising. It's going to be open in September. And Monmouth is now coming out of the ground. That's going to be open 12 months later. But that's some £88 million worth of expenditure. Clearly we have to make sure that we're as lean as we possibly can to cope with the borrowing costs for that and maximise our capital receipts so that we can make sure that we borrow as little as possible. We also have a core programme that covers highways and property planned maintenance, and that is under extreme stress. We're reviewing the effectiveness of that. We're also looking at the disability facility grants, which I'll come on to in a minute, and also our county farm estate. Are we utilising our farm estate, which is quite extensive, in the right way? Further work's needed on the following schemes before they can be included in the capital budget. So they're not in the budget, but we have got a political commitment to deliver. So it's not that we've parked them up and they're in the long grass. They're very much not in the long grass, and we will be bringing them forward. The first one to come forward will be the Monmouth pool replacement. A lot of work going on that at the moment. work is currently in progress to create the new hub in Abergavenny and the town hall or the market hall. That will complete our desire to get hubs in each of the towns where we combine all of the services in the one place. With the disabled facility grants, that's been the same for the last 10 years. It gets oversubscribed very, very quickly. We're not just looking at how we can provide more money for that next year, but we're also looking at how we can get some more money into it this year, because we've got a lot of small jobs that would transform people's lives, and we're looking to do that in the current year as well as a better grant in the following year. City Deal is something which is coming up. It's not in this budget because there is no financial commitment to it this year, but there will be in the future. But the idea of that is to generate more growth and value added in the area, and there will be all sorts of benefits accruing to the county out of that. And again, the rationalisation of office equipment. Do we need it? Are the staff in the right place? Are they in a place that necessitates the support of that building and lots of travel? Would it be better off if they were here, for example? So that sort of thing is being looked at. The budget proposals are therefore out for consultation. The consultation period ends on the 31st of January. The scrutiny committees are looking at it now. The first one was this morning, and that will go on throughout the month. And I shall also be going to some outside bodies. So the public consultation will end at the 31st of January. The final budget will go through Cabinet in February, and council tax setting and the finalised budget will be before council on the 9th of March. So I would end there and invite questions, but for the purposes of people looking in, please, if you have got some thoughts, share them with us. Email us direct, go on Twitter, use Facebook, use whatever means that you want. But if you feel that you've got a point that you would like to make, we'd be delighted to hear from you. So that's the end of this short presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions from people in the room. At one point, I might add, I noticed a member of the public taking photographs of the screen. There is actually a printed handout, so you're more than welcome to take that to save you using the space on your camera. Has anybody got any points that they'd like to raise? Sean?
I'd like to ask a couple of questions really around council tax arrears. It's very hard to find anywhere what the exact amount is, but I managed with some research to find that it's currently at 3.6 million, which goes a long way towards filling your 4.3 million gap. And of course, about 3-4 years ago, it was just over £1 million. So the arrears have trebled in about 3 years, which says to me that council aren't performing as well as perhaps they might in that area. Could you tell me what steps, because there's nothing on it on your presentation, you plan to take extra to gather this money back? Because I'm a firm believer that everybody should be paying their way on that issue.
Well,
the second thing which is related to that is, particularly when we've got elections coming up, is, and I don't mean to say any mischief at all, but out of the arrears, how many of those individuals are councillors who haven't paid with 2 months or more arrears? And the reason I ask that, particularly all the important meetings that you've got coming up, that if councillors haven't paid their council tax for 2 months or more, there are certain meetings by law they're not allowed to sit in and vote in. And I think as a member of the electorate, that's an important issue that we should know about.
Okay,
And the third question,
right.
very quickly, is about 3 years ago when austerity first kicked in, Monmouthshire Council set up the Innovation Hub. And Mr Matthews said in 4 years he'd save £43 million. Could you tell us how that's going?
Okay, well, we'll work back. I might rely on the two officers I've got here to answer the last question because they'll have more up-to-date information on that. With regards to council tax collection, yes, the figures you quoted are right. If you go back 3 or 4 years and look at the same graph, you'll see the same relationship. It hasn't got worse. It's always that level because of the amount that we're collecting. Nobody gets written off unless they're actually bankrupt or dead, or we literally can't find them. We have attachments of earning orders, attachments of benefit orders. We have just about every means available to us through the courts and private arrangements to get that money in. And our overall collection rate is in excess of 99.5%, but not in current year. So we tend to get 97.5, thank you, Joy, in any one year, but then we're on the people who haven't paid, and those various means of collection then tend to very rapidly bring us back to that normal collection figure if you take it over a period. So yes, we are 3.5 million in arrears currently, but that's in arrears of that's in a collection in year of 45. What's the annual? Can't think off the top of my head. The annual amount that we collect in council tax.
Sorry, it's over 50 million now because we collect for the police and community councils as well.
Yeah, and the arrears are of everything, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you know, in context, it isn't that great, but I can assure you we are absolutely on it, and always have been. As for councillors who haven't paid their council tax, they can't vote, and we're on them. That is something that we particularly watch. They can't vote, and they certainly can't stand for re-election. So we do particularly watch that as one of the.
Do you publish that?
We don't.
I'll take the word for it otherwise, but
Yeah.
that's never published anymore.
No, we don't. I don't think there's.
We haven't published it. We've never had any cause to since I've been in post.
That's probably because no one's ever asked.
We
I
ask.
thought it was a matter of public interest.
We make sure every year that councillors are reminded of their of the requirement to have fulfilled their duties to pay their council tax before they can vote in the budget decision, and that reminder goes out every year to councillors. I've never been in a situation where we've had to stop anybody from voting.
And have fallen foul of the law and aren't able to vote, I think that's an important issue that should be made public. As embarrassing that might be for the councillor, as a taxpayer, we're entitled to know who can't represent us.
We've never been in a situation where we've had that position.
But that's not the point, with the greatest respect.
But
that's a fact that affects everybody, and we should know about it.
Yeah, but we haven't had it.
Yeah. But we don't know that.
No, we can assure you that it doesn't happen, and the note that Joy's referring to goes to all councillors. We don't just. I mean, I get it. Mine's never in arrears, but you know, I get that letter as well. Oh, it's an email actually. Just reminds everybody of their responsibility. It's basically to remind people that if they fell into that category, we are checking, and they will not be allowed to vote. Peter, do you want to pick up that other point?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Just offering a suggestion, really, just in terms of appeasing I'm just wondering as to whether we just make a statement to that effect in the reports that we take through council. And then, you know, in the interest of openness and transparency. So, yeah. Anyway. Just in terms of, I think, which was your third question, which was, I guess, a question that was referencing back to the Centre for Innovation. I held the position of Head of Innovation back then. I'm not familiar, and I know Councillor Greenland, who was, I guess, my cabinet member at that time. I'm not aware of our Chief Executive making a statement to that effect. Certainly to that sum, anyway.
Press 43 million.
Right.
So
Okay.
I was very curious to see if that was going to happen.
Right. Okay. It's certainly not a figure that I'm familiar with, but however, I think what I would touch on is, I guess, our approach to innovation that's been enshrined within, I guess, our Your County Your Way philosophy originally, that's now developed into our future Monmouthshire approach within the last 12 months. You know, and that is very much driven and been, you know, embedded within our budget approach. And very much, as Phil touched on in the early part of the presentation, I mean, even referencing the last 4 years, Phil, and the £18 million of savings that we've been able to take down within the business, protecting frontline services, etc. You know, it's gone a long way to securing, you know, a good level of return on investment for a moderate level of investment that was originally put in. You know, and we intend, you know, future Monmouthshire to have that same very positive impact.
That was the point, wasn't it? Because what we had at that particular time was an authority that was overburdened, not as effective as it ought to have been, and it needed a radical approach. And the whole idea of setting up the Innovation Lab was it's a way of digging in, examining all of the different systems. We even had external contractors didn't we looking at ways of looking in at yourself, system thinking and all of that. And what it did was, by rolling that out and having people within each department who were switched on to that way of thinking, enabled that new culture to go right throughout the authority. And the result has been that people, like I was saying about all of those different ideas that are coming forward, people are constantly looking at different ways of doing things. And instead of saying, oh, well, I do it like this because I've been told to, they're coming along and say, do you realise that if I did it like this, I could do it so much more effectively and so much money. So the initial idea of the Innovation Lab has not so much gone, but it's throughout the authority now. But the Innovation Lab was the catalyst for it.
I understand step change in performance. What I'm getting at is, how much do you think as a result of that did you save? Or would it just naturally evolve those savings?
Yeah, I think it naturally evolves. And I don't think you can really separate the two in terms of our medium-term financial planning process, our budget process, and in fact, you know, what we've taken through in recent years through the Centre for Innovation, Your County Your Way, and going forward with future Monmouthshire. And you know, if we reflect forward in terms of the challenges that we're lucky in a way in terms of 17-18, in terms of the favourable settlement that we've had, some of the corporate savings that we've been able to achieve, that's really helped us, I guess, in terms of being able to have a sustainable business model for 17-18. But you know, we've got some significant challenges to face, you know, in the years to come. I'm not expecting the settlements to be that favourable going forward. And clearly, future Monmouthshire, which is, I guess, you know, embracing innovation at the heart of it, is going to go a long way to helping us sustain our business going forward, and obviously protecting frontline services. And
the training still exists. There's a lab in Mega, and not only does it train our own staff in innovation, it also makes money because other people send people along and use it as a training centre. Yes, thank you.
I would just, as a Llanelli Hill resident, I would just like to thank you for an excellent presentation this evening. And, you know, I feel as a resident that the council have done a brilliant job in minimising the impact to residents while still keeping the services going. So thank you very much indeed, and thanks for the chance to come along this evening.
That's very kind of you, thank you. Anybody else got any points that they want to make? Because
Just one, Phil.
you,
I'm asking you to look at a crystal ball. Strategy around Brexit risks.
who knows?
I suppose it is a rhetorical question.
Yeah, anybody who's brave enough to make a statement on that's welcome to do it. Peter?
It's going to be a very short statement. I think it's going to be a reactive model. You know, we're going to have to react to the circumstances that play out, I think. You know, and it will come through from central government, Whitehall, down through Welsh Government. You know, it will be, I guess we'll see impacts playing through our communities, hopefully, you know, positively. But, you know, that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it may take some time for that to play through. So, you know, we've just got to keep track of that.
Has a risk assessment been done on it yet?
Well, funnily enough, sorry, I was in Economy and Development Select Committee this morning, and our strategic risk assessment has been brought through that, and one of the key strategic risks is around the impact of Brexit. So absolutely, it's featuring you know, significantly within our risk approach. Yeah.
Yes, but we are establishing the risk. Do we know what the answers are? No. But we will. Well, if there's no other points, then I'll wrap it up and thank everybody for coming along. Thank you for your contributions. Like this afternoon's session, which was slightly better attended. The quality of the questions and the discussions around them was absolutely wonderful. So thank you again, and thank you to those watching at home.